Greetings, Monsterites. Today I would like to discuss a method I find fun, stimulating, and productive for creating original monster concepts. The project I will be referring to here is about monster STLs, or 3D printable files for tabletop gaming, primarily in this case Dungeons & Dragons 5e, as there will be an additional stat block and lore to go in with that. But of course you can incorporate it into any game as you wish. But the point here is creating a miniature monster that would be playable on a map on the tabletop for heroes to go out and hunt. With this being the thematic grounds where this monster will be used in real life, I felt naturally inclined to create something that I would like to see on the table. I'm a miniature freak. I've been painting miniatures off and on since I was around 9 years old, and I simply love tiny, crazy, very detailed creatures. What always impresses me and tickles my fancy is the smaller it is and the more detail it has. Growing older, I'm starting to appreciate larger sized minis, but a mini is a mini and they're all wonderful to me. And so at the start of this project, I simply went into the mind frame of what I would like to see in front of me on the table. What would capture my attention? What would I enjoy painting? I do actually really enjoy simplified creatures because of the freedom of creativity you have when you're painting it, but intricately detailed stuff with armor and other details gives me joy as well. So with this first monster, I wanted something gangly, very exaggerated gangly, oversized arms, oversized claws, tall, very long, but humanoid, with a spider-like crawl using its legs and arms as all legs. With this form and shape, I can now start to build and explore. And then I soon find that the story around this creature starts to form itself as I add more and more details to the model. Now thoughts and ideas begin to arise other than this being just a treacherous creature bound to destroy and kill things. It's more than that. There's a purpose behind all that, and that purpose now starts to reveal itself. And in this case with the Drapak, I forgot to mention the name I had given him. It, as the nickname, presented itself actually quite early in the process, and that was Daddy Longlegs. Now, of course, that would refer to one gender, and that's not what I wanted, but I did want that nickname. And so I'll get around back to how the Drapak got this nickname. But the final name I decided upon is Drapak, which basically means scratcher. To scratch, a scratcher in Polish. And I think that name doesn't need much of an explanation. And so in continuing building up the Drapak, I wanted a humanoid head, but I didn't want it. I want it to be a bit more eerie. So what it has upon itself is the remains of its host, of its human host, which can be female or male. And so that's why upon the Drapak you see a humanoid head, post-human head, with the eyes closed. As the actual head of the Drapak is the torso itself. As you can see, eyes, small eyes all over it, very reminiscent of what you would see with a spider. For you see, what creates a Drapak is actually a sort of microorganism, a bacteria, if you will, that inhabits only a certain type of plant. And if a creature has a brush up against that plant, a scratch, a wound open enough to transmit this bacteria, it will then slowly start to take over the host, changing their anatomy to be much more suited for its purpose. And the purpose, simply as often in nature, to consume and propagate, to spread its seed. And that's what quite literally the Drapak does. Therefore, its form has to be simple and straight to the point. Kill, consume, or just kill while you're consuming, as you would see a praying mantis do, and then reproduce. And therefore, for the mouth, I wanted something a bit more optimized, something that is in a hurry, in a rush to consume, to feed, to eat. And so underneath the torso, there's not only one mandible or mouth, but four suited to tear through any type of flesh. At this point in the sculpt, more concepting begins to blossom, such as color and the further lore. And now you should have a pretty good foundation into what this creature is and what purpose it will serve. And so again, in this case, it is a plant-related creature, and it simulated extremely deadly host. It has no interest in reason or relationships. The design goes into deeper details. details, such as making the appearance of a larger abdomen. It seems spiders and plants were two themes that started to go at each other strong at this point for me, as I appreciated the fascinating and creepy anatomy of a spider, and the challenge of, in this case, what that purpose would serve. So therefore, that lower abdomen appearing area has that purpose of spreading infected seeds so that they can grow into plants and infect more creatures of the forest, or not so much so, such as humans. And so this brings us back as to why this creature would be nicknamed Daddy Longlegs. You may know of daddy longlegs as those little bugs similar to spiders. They're not spiders. They only have one main body part with the legs sticking out of it. And so with the human angle, and this being a creature of the forests, who often goes out there into the woods? Well, woodsmen, to cut trees, to hunt, fish, trap. And so in children's tales that it came to be, that it would be referred to, these creatures would be referred to as daddy longlegs. As often so, they would have the remains of a man's head. Basically, the assimilation at this point, once it's completed, it has taken completely over the anatomy of the human. It is now more plant, far more plant than human. But what remains, other than the general humanoid shape and form of it, is the remnant of the original host's head. This head is not functional at all anymore. It has no brain. There are no human anatomical organs left. It has all been fully assimilated, and the head only remains as a very primitive lure that this plant bacteria monster has to trick other potential hosts. It is a simple creature, and so this foolery really has no effect on most humans, aside from maybe very, very young children when they see only the head pop out from the bushes. But just a little bit more of a matured child will immediately start to notice something odd with this being, and especially so if they were a relative of theirs. So it's not a very effective form of adaptation, but only time will tell where the evolution here will go. Will the remains of the head simply be removed, or will it start to retain more and more human, or the features of the original hosts, such as being able to speak and move its jaws? And to really nail down the factor that it is plant-related, I added some leaf or plant-like features, sort of plants like you would see underwater, such as seaweeds. Organic forms that suggest plant, but are still somewhat alien. And so if you've gone through all these steps, and it hasn't hit you before, then the color comes up. And what color makes sense with this? Well, of course, most plant life or plant anatomy we see is green. But then there is this revenant upon all of this dead or organic bust of the host's original face. And so that's where I decided to go from green to sort of a cooler color of blues and gray to signify the death there. But this certainly can go another way. It could go bright red as in flowers, or more pinkish in tone and tan, or brown as with human skin tones. There being so many brilliant colors amongst flowers, one could definitely take advantage of that here as well. So that is my little process of coming up with the drapak, also known as the daddy longlegs in all those fairy tales. I have to add that creating a D&D stat block, basically a monster stat so that it's playable in D&D, didn't really limit this. It actually opens some more doors, as when you start exploring how to create a creature for D&D and the balance there and the different options that you have and that you can incorporate, it really does open some paths maybe that you didn't even think about exploring. So even if you're creating a monster for, let's say, an art competition, wink wink coming up soon here, I think it's not a bad suggestion to explore how you would create it for the world of D&D using D&D rules as well, because that could actually explore and deepen what you've been creating around your monster. So it's a really fun process, and I do recommend people checking it out. Now, if you're first exploring the world of D&D and the rules, it could be a bit overwhelming, so I don't suggest doing that by the T, unless your aim, of course, is to make it a D&D playable creature. You can go about it very loosely and simply look at the different strengths, compare other related creatures in the D&D bestiary books, as they're filled with awesome, magnificent creatures of all types, and it's a great place to compare and contrast your creature and kind of set things up. And don't worry about the numbers unless you actually want it playable. That goes to another level with the challenge rating and all that, and it does have a little bit of a learning curve. So next time you're creating a monster, I suggest thinking in 3D and striving to develop a fresher silhouette before basking in the details of it all. Take your time and let the story reveal itself to you. There are many different ways to creating something, but I find this one especially enjoyable for miniature monster figures, whether they be for collecting, physically playing with as toys, or for display. This monster is currently up at a link you can check out in the description, and I do hope we unlock the next one as well. Here's a quick peek at that one. And with this one, again, you can clearly see what I've been referring to in step 1 of this process of mine. Just the form and what I would find fun to look at and just handle at that scale, and also paint up as well. I'd love to read in the comments section about the process you go through to create an original creature concept. I hope this was helpful at all, or at least entertaining at all. And let me know if you play D&D, what challenge rating do you think I made or I should make this Drapak. Until the next one, I've been yours truly, Monster Master Arthur.